I'm gonna ask.
Okay, it says we are live. Let me make sure. I'm going to LinkedIn to make sure. I don't know why you would jump over here, but okay.
Have you seen any of my failed lives online?
No.
Not alive, girly pop. I can't find it on LinkedIn.
I know I can't either. Hold on.
Tell somebody on staff to see if we're online.
Hold on. Let me go to somebody log into LinkedIn. Someone log in.
Everyone can see and hear you. That's the bottom of my screen says.
I was like, oh, so they can?
Oh, we are live. We are definitely live. Okay, I just saw us.
Cool, 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 cool.
What
Okay.
is
Well, I just want to welcome everyone who's coming in today. Today we're talking about Hot Girl Summer and prioritizing pleasure as a strategy for our organizational movements. At Yellowhammer Fund, it's become one of our signatures of our community programs and just expanding the larger conversation about what reproductive justice is. So my name is Tia Freeman. I am the communications director at Yellowhammer Fund, and I am joined by Janice Fountain, who is the executive director of Yellowhammer Fund. So Janice, you want to introduce yourself and everybody, or introduce yourself to everyone on LinkedIn?
Oh my god, why do I hate intros? Intros, bios. I'm like, no, please do not perceive me. Hi everyone. My name is Janice Fountain. I use she, her pronouns. I am the world's biggest wanderer, a little bit of a writer, and I've been bringing my chaos and frustrations of organizing to executive director at the Yellowhammer Fund. We organize around really basic principles. We believe in bodily autonomy, and we believe that pregnancy shouldn't be a catalyst to death, incarceration, or poverty. So all of our work kind of aligns with those principles. And yeah, I'm excited to be here with you.
Yeah. So Janice, because I sent you no questions prior to, because I really wanted
It's
you
the
to
setup.
I really
You hate
wanted
me.
you to be off the cuff. I think you do your best work off the dome. So I'm gonna kick it off with something very obvious. Okay. For anyone
What's
who's not
obvious?
familiar with Hot Girl Summer, explain what Hot Girl Summer is.
Okay. I looked for the questions before the call. Said I don't think she
You
said.
didn't get them.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. That's Tia coded. That's very Leo of you. Ooh, Hot Girl Summer is a month-long Black Joy project in Birmingham, Alabama, really kind of statewide because some of the programming extends. Really, when I was making this programming, I was like, people are not going to understand the necessity of joy in this context, in this moment. And it was interesting building it out when I was thinking of the block party. Some of this for me innately is like clear, obvious thing to do. But I remember building it out, the block party, the cash stipends, the sex ed lives and the things. And I was like, I better add like this policy advocacy or something. Like I better add the fundable thing that they want to see or like the forcing people to learn a thing in their own context. And I was like, no. I was like, I want joy. I want organizing around joy because joy is something you can organize around easily. And I was like, okay, well, we're gonna have a party, but it's gonna bring folks together, and we're gonna organize from that place. And I remember submitting it to Borealis, being like, I didn't add the policy. I don't know what's about to happen. And Borealis was like, absolutely, yes. I was like, Black Joy? They were like, yes. I was like, autonomously? They're like, absolutely. And I was like, in community, for community, by community with no obligation? They're like, yeah. I was like, oh, we outside. So yeah, High Girl Summer is just like a reclaiming of joy, and in a way that doesn't invite you to coalesce on philanthropy's terms or any other system's terms, but like, what does it mean for you? What does it mean for us to be in the space together and have joy in a way? I think never mind, you probably gonna ask a question. Yeah, so it's a Black Joy and Pleasure 4-week campaign.
Yeah. And you did touch on, yeah, I am going to ask that later. But you did touch on something that brings me to my next question is why is it so important to make sure that like we're not trying to sneak in or like backdoor the education when we're really centering like pleasure for pleasure's sake and joy because people deserve it instead of being like, and now that I got you here, boom, let me teach you things or let me ask you for something.
Ooh, um, I would say joy has to be autonomous if you're like offering something that you perceive to be joyous or pleasurable. It has to be autonomous and consensual. And I think what this movement wants to do in the moment is have obligatory pieces and still consider it to be mutualistic. There's
Yeah.
nothing mutual about obligation. If I come to your house and say, "Oh, you have this thing that I know you need, but you
Mhm.
have to engage with me in this way," that's not mutualistic. And people are like, "Oh, well, that invites people to do what they can, and they like got to put in their little piece." And it's like, nope,
Mhm.
still obligation.
Yeah.
Still obligation. If I come tell you, "Oh, we got tattoos outside and it's food or whatever," but I say, "Well, you gotta sign up for this class after this so that you can understand," then it's still obligatory. So it's been necessary to do this work in a way that's an invitation. I
Mhm.
think I always appreciate Tony Cape and Bear's point of like making movement irresistible. I think what's unfortunate about that sometimes is we see that only as in like this is a crisis in your backyard, don't you want to be involved, and less so of like we can like decide what other pieces of our lives look like and be a relationship differently, build differently. I think High Girl Summer is also an invitation to ideate, like
Yeah.
let's dream. You can't always dream from a place of like like severe lack or
Mhm.
doom. Like I don't want to come dream with you after I told you the world is burning. Now we have to dream. But like
Yeah.
come outside and jump rope and dream. Come
Yeah.
outside and play kickball. Come outside and get a tattoo and be like, you know what? I want to do certain things around myself as well. It was interesting one year. A woman was like, "Hey, we just needed a reason to come outside at the same time together as community." Because I have never talked to that many people around me in my own community all this time until we were outside for the same reason. And so, yeah, I just always mutualism cannot be obligatory. There's nothing mutualistic about an obligation. And when I say that, sometimes, or even if it's how the bus engages, right? We have diapers, we have wipes, we have whatever. We want to talk to you about reproductive health and the landscape for abortion access. If you don't want to, take your stuff.
Yeah.
Like if that's not your thing, but around time progresses and people are like, "Oh, what was that thing you're doing?" Actually, I do want to organize around that. Actually, I do trust y'all. Y'all been in such relationship that I want to be part of. I want to come into political consciousness in a natural way. That's an invitation. So, Hot Girl Summer because pleasure is like deeply strategic. Like, yeah, joy is like what's bringing people in. We can organize around a meal, we can organize around a block party, or we can
Yeah.
just be for the sake of being.
Yeah. I like that. I think a lot of people get stuck in the tradition of like nonprofit work, and it tends to come off more like a timeshare where we're like, oh, we're like gonna offer you this thing, but like wait, you have to sit for this class for 12 hours. And then if you do all of these, like these contingencies, then you can get this thing at the end of it. And then you become really skeptical and hesitant whenever people ask you about like, hey, come sit in on my class. You're like, nah, y'all trying to scam me. Y'all trying to do something else. I didn't work with y'all before. Whereas this way it does feel a lot more like organic. And I feel like
Yeah.
people tend to gravitate to that a bit more. Okay, so for any of the naysayers, any organizations that are like, I'm still not clicking with a free block party, or what do free beauty services and tattoos have to do with movement work? How would you be able to like tie those things together for them?
Oh, baby, like free yourself. Like this, like my gosh, today. There's so many historical contexts for organizing around joy, around people even have trouble seeing people having their basic needs met as bringing people into movement space. And so I just think there's not a way to like quickly say like this is how this works. I think if you engage oppressed folks, you have to acknowledge not only material circumstance, but what that does to one system to only engage crisis constantly. And when
Mhm.
we talk about how we engage it, yes, give people cash. That's part of this. That's part of like that structure of high growth summer. But also, sometimes joy has to be permissive. If we give you $300 in cash and say this is for wellness, and your bill is due, your light bill is due, your rent is due, you're going to pay those, right? Like you're not going to be like, yep, and I'm getting my nails done because I got this $300 that was for wellness or for joy. You're going to do what you had to do. So some of Hot Girl Summer's thought is that if we bring you the joy and wellness, and all you have to do is walk outside, acknowledging that Alabama does not contribute to like the infrastructure for travel. So like people being able to get from one place to the next is a system that's also deeply racially biased,
Mhm.
recognizing that obviously economic part of like who really is going to go get a tattoo and stuff while they're like in crisis. Um, Bringing it to an individual in a way that acknowledges all of the barrier. Like, no, you don't have to travel. No, you don't have to pay. No, you don't have to explain. No, you don't have to give your firstborn. No, we don't need your blood type. No, you don't have to be at the state house. No, you don't have to pledge to vote.
Yeah.
Right? There are ways to be in and build relationship, and we have to like model that sometimes for folks that are like deeply getting crushed under systems. And sometimes it's that folks already are on that type of time anyway, so they're like, oh yeah, you get it, we get it. These are people I can organize with. They care about more than just me
Mhm.
being at the state house. Like they care that I experienced joy today. Yeah, people that don't get it, I don't know. It just feels like a colonization thing.
Yeah.
And so I get it. Like I don't feel disappointed in people that don't get it,
Yeah.
but I just think that's maybe the joy of being like in and of community in such a
Mhm.
way at the fun that so many of us are like, that makes sense. We're serving people that are the us of the thing, as Shaquila says. So
Yeah.
it makes sense for us. And I think if we're going to have conversations about what it means to put people that with lived experience in leadership positions, then we then have to trust their decision making and them saying, like, if I say, oh, we need joy, we need to look like this, your job isn't to be like, I don't think so. Your
Yeah.
job then is to be like, how do I support? What do y'all need? What does that look like? There's a quote, and I always say I'm going to find who said it, and I never find it in time, where a man said around the AIDS epidemic, he was saying we had to bury our friends in the morning, advocate in the afternoon, and dance at night. And we couldn't forget to
Yeah.
dance. And
I heard.
that's just like, yeah,
Yeah, I think that people often forget about like when we talk about sustainability of movements, there's an emotional aspect that comes from being sustained. Like, as someone with lived experience, as being like a single parent, someone who grew up, who ain't had a lot of money, you know what I'm saying? Like, being able to have those small things, not just like, oh, well, I ate today, or oh, the roof is over my head, the lights finally got cut back on, being like, dang, I got to go skating, with my friends really changed the way I was able to continue going day to day.
yeah,
And I think sometimes we kind of forget about the emotional side, like side effect of why do we want people to continue to keep fighting for their freedom if life just is not worth living, right? Like, and if you can't change that, if you can't give something people like a hope in a sense, then like why would they? And I think I don't know who said that quote either, but I have heard it and I love it. And now I gotta look it up. It's gonna piss me off that I can't remember off the top of my head. But I think that speaks to a larger reproductive justice framework. Unfortunately, when people hear reproductive justice, sometimes it gets conflated with like just the reproductive rights of it all. So things like abortion, things like access to birth control, and we forget the more expansive justice part of the work. And so, like, how do you think pleasure fits into the RJ framework?
I think when you think about reproductive justice and like the necessity of it and how it was created, I think joy is just every piece of it. Like, and that's not even like always like we brought this event or activity. I'm like in a joyful, pleasurable place from being in community with other Black women. Like, that's plenty. Me and the gays and theys, I'm having a great time if there's like a piece of food and my people. So I
Yeah,
just think of, even when you think of like people getting together to create a thing in terms of RJ, how it came together is like that congregation was them probably having a lot of joy, but also creating from a place of like abundance of relationship. Yeah, I just think it just feels like central. Like it feels like that foundational piece of like creating. I've built things from a sense of lack, but always in community with people and in in ways that like invite joy and pleasure. So like I don't you just can't have RJ without joy. You can't have RJ without pleasure. You could probably have reproductive rights without joy. But you just can't. It's like that's like the sustaining piece in the
Yeah.
same way that you like you're not walking around without water. You
Mhm.
can't sustain reproductive justice work
Yeah.
for birthing folks of color and be like, oh yeah, no, joy is not necessary. Like, how are we sustaining our minds and bodies and our abilities to dream and create and be in a relationship differently if the only things we engage are like really systemic things or like legislation or what have you? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I also feel like it's deeply ancestral. Like when I think about the reproductive justice movement and how it was created by 12 Black women, I think about the context of their lives and the cultural components that made that possible. And I think about like folks back in rural South Carolina having fish fries to help somebody whose house burned down, like replace their stuff. It wasn't just, oh, we're donating. It was like, oh, we all gonna come together, we gonna party, we gonna celebrate, we gonna eat, and we gonna take care of one another, right? I think about like rent parties back during the days of like the Harlem Renaissance, all the way up until now. Folks are like, again, we gonna party, we gonna throw down, and we gonna raise some money to make
right.
sure folks are taken care of. So I think that like when I think of how we operate today, it plays a lot off the legacies of like how our people have culturally operated for decades, right? Like, and probably even longer than that. So I think when we're talking about reproductive justice, it is inherent to the pleasure politics of the ways we've been moving the word.
It's it's funny thinking about the historical context of like even the turn of the century of like people risking it all to have joy, like you at this cabaret or you at this like speak
Yeah.
easy dancing, being all of the things that you're not supposed. I was thinking about that. Wait, we both read the book, Beautiful Lives, Wayward Lives,
Wayward
Beautiful
lives.
Experiments, when they were like risking it all to be in community, to show up, women showing up mass presenting in a cabaret or in a speakeasy to dance and
Mhm.
being like, we wasn't even supposed to be outside. Like we
Yeah.
passed curfew, we are all these things, but all of that being worth it because you
Mhm.
wanted to dance.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Taking a turn a little bit, I know that you always say, and one of our like, guiding principles is that pregnancy should not be a catalyst to death, poverty, or incarceration. How do you feel like YHF implementing pleasure into our programming also expands on that statement?
How it expands. Again, I think it's foundational. I don't
Mhm,
think it's an expansion of, I think it's a piece from which we can build from.
mhm,
Um because it's I think people already know what they're engaging in such an intimate way that trying to organize from a different place would not work. Like
mhm.
I'm going to hear you talking to me about a crisis, of course, but maybe I need to be sustained in a different way before we engage something that is that is overwhelming. So I don't really see it as an expansion of, but more so as like a grounding force in peace. There's
Yeah.
no way for me to like move or create or ideate this work without having serious joy be involved.
Mhm.
And luckily, my whole team is silly as hell. Y'all have no sense. Um, all while having all the sense of the world. But yeah, I just think it's foundational. So I wouldn't say it's an expansion of. I think the extent to which it's like come later has just been us fighting like institutions that should be supporting that work long enough to where we couldn't be ignored. So like it's not really an expansion of, it's really just like the base from which we move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense because a lot of the of the three that you named, a lot of those are just like negative consequences of something that is innately human, and there's a innate
Yeah.
human desire to like create a family for a lot of folks. So I think it also means that like in wanting to expand my family should not mean that I have to be miserable, right? And there should be
Mhm.
supports surrounding the fact that like I should be able to parent and be joyous, right? Like it
Right.
shouldn't be like, and now my life sucks because I have to take kids all these other places and have to prioritize their joy and their happiness or like basic necessities over mine. So now I haven't gotten my nails done in years because like I'm so busy doing this. And I think that affords a lot of people a reason to expand and continue their families because they're like, wow, I'm enjoying being a parent instead of just
Right.
like I'm surviving it. I did what I was supposed to do and now we're
Yeah.
making it through.
Yeah. For sure.
You touched on this earlier, but our communities are always being called on to organize, protest, grieve, and respond to crises. Since implementing joy into YHS larger programming, what have you seen shift in real time from our relationships with our communities?
So what we've done well is always be deeply relational. And I say that because I think movement broadly does not value building relationships, but it
Mhm.
also attempts to build movement with the same people. Like and I hate saying middle class now because there's none, but like the middle class and up, the people that already have access. It's just like, God damn it. But I think movement broadly wants to build with the same group of people, like with this like middle level of access, people with internet, people that already have some interests, people that already know a thing, people that are already super politically engaged. And when we talk about building movement or building power, there's relationship that's inherent to those words, but they get co-opted so often that when people say power building, they mean electoral. And when they
Yeah.
say movement building, they mean voting.
Mhm.
And that's frustrating because when you think about what's necessary to build movement, to make change, where power lives inside of community, we're not engaging those people. And
Yeah.
then when we are, we're not taking enough time to build enough relationships so that we can, one, be mutually accountable, right? We want to be like, oh, this person needs to do this and they need to be accountable to that where there's no relationship. There's going to be no accountability where there is no relationship built.
Mhm.
And relationship building is a muscle to flex in a colonial society. And so some of it is just like really recognizing we're not going to be able to do some of these things really quickly. Like, I think we're a society that wants immediate gratification from doing the thing. We want people to understand. We gave a person a thing. Now you give me the thing. We want it to be super transactional. When in actuality, we need to be having conversations, meeting people's material needs, sharing about our own selves, coming into conversations vulnerable enough for people to see that it's a place where they can engage safely. So initially there was a lot of like, not sure who those people are. They seem all right, and we came out the gate doing pretty good because we got the speakers, we got the things. People like, they seem kind of cool.
Yeah.
But people weren't always engaged in the conversations that we ideally would have been having.
Yeah.
But cool, we're coming back. And eventually you see people start to have conversations about being pregnant by people's husbands. I'm like, you don't necessarily have to tell us that, like that could still be personal. And then just certain things like speaking to the obligation and mutualism. We are like doing this book club, and one of the folks in Ellington, again, we ask people for nothing.
Yeah.
One of the folks at Ellington was like, "Well, you can use my house for the book club," and we're like, "Fuck yeah, like yes, let's do the thing." But then she was like, "Girl, and y'all can use my food stamps because blah 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 blah." blah. And I was like, "Wait," she's like, we don't need your food stamps. We could probably bring the food," but I had to check myself because this is her really wanting to be mutualistic, and like she was like, "Y'all have shown up for me so much. This is what I have to give. Let me
Mhm.
give it," and I had to check myself because I'm like. I'm looking at it in a super transactional way of like, I have more of this thing than you. That doesn't feel equitable. When really she was excited with the thing that she had to offer.
Yeah.
So yeah, being in a relationship has just meant that like skin and buy-in that we want people to have has come really naturally and not because they know they have to get a thing.
Yeah.
That's been important. Building trust in that way has meant that I don't know, Tia, I was sleeping on somebody's floor before this job. And,
Mhm.
like, I feel grounded in that version of Janice that was on someone's floor, and it's been at least 6 years since I wonder where my next meal is coming from. So,
Yeah.
like, yes, I'm in and of. Yes, I'm having conversations all day, every day. Yes, these are my lived experiences. Yes, I deepen my political analysis by reading, and someone's lived experience is gonna look differently from mine now. My perception of, like, what needs to happen is gonna be, in some ways, based off of the fact that I have a salary, that I have health insurance benefits. So getting to engage constantly in honest, real, safe ways with folks whose realities are still such that I don't have what I need. I
Mhm.
don't have a salary. I don't have these things. This is what it means to show up for me. I think it's been necessary to keep ourselves grounded, and we are not experts of anybody's lived experience at all. Like, yes, lived experience is not analysis, but also like we have to be willing to be deeply present and moved by people's lived circumstances in the now. We
Mhm.
can't just be willing to evaluate them. We can't just be willing to write them down. We give you the thing. We pass you the mic so you can say it.
Yeah.
Um, but really, like, are we willing to be deeply moved by where people are in
Mhm.
the now and not just say, well, we're going to teach you how to fish and then,
Yeah.
but like, what does it mean to really let it hit you that folks are living without what they need
Mhm.
and then organize from that place?
Yeah. One, a bar. I had to write that down. When you said relationship building is a muscle to flex in a colonial society, I said, "Where's my pen? Where's my pen?" I said, "Did I write that down?" I think about that so often, and I think about the ways in which um, so many of us move through the work, and how in a like content driven society, a lot of times we can do this work without being deeply in community with other people, right? We read the right books and we talk about our stances and our, our ideologies, and we vote the right way, but we are not as deeply ingrained or intertwined with our neighbors as maybe we could be. And sometimes because of that, we only can come from our own lived experience and our own
Yep.
perspective, which have value, but is not the full story, right? So I think it's very hard for me to situate myself with the understanding that, like, oh, how can I be helpful if I don't know whose stories I'm trying to help? And I also think we have to think about, like, have we earned folks' stories? And that's something that we don't always do the best job, just as human beings, of being reflective in that way. Like, we want all these things. Like, I want to be a good person and I want to help and I want to do all these things without really sitting with myself and saying, like, have I earned the right to your private life, your interior being, in order to help you in that way? And what is driving my need to help? Is it ego, or is it
Mm.
like a genuine concern for like other people in the way that people have shown up for me and just wanting to pour that back in? So I think, like, what I have learned from working at YH for almost 2 years in September, has really been the value and importance of like that relational organizing in a way that I don't think that I was organizing in before, at least not to that depth. So I think that, like, that has been something truly pivotal in my own like mentorship and education. So shameless plug to shout out to the mentors at YH, including Janice and the rest of the Yellowhammer fan staff, for like helping me grow in that way. Okay, so we've talked a lot about like pleasure, and we have talked a lot about the ways in which like movement spaces have organized at a grassroots level. But now we got to talk about the nonprofit culture and philanthropy as a whole, because it's one thing for us. Yep, just keep smiling. Blink if you will. I think that on the ground level, we get it. And there are so many organizations who get it. Where we hit a wall is the funding level. um, and so and so can you talk about like why it is important not just to have why is it important to budget for joy, right? And why is it important to for funders to understand why funds need to be allocated for joy?
Oh, for fuck's sake. Oh, I'm on LinkedIn. Oh gosh. Gets booted. Oh my gosh, where to start? No, you don't see tears, Amy. I cannot believe my team would be in the comments doing this. But you were close to seeing tears. So let me start with philanthropy does understand they're intentionally being obtuse. And it's frustrating. I think I've been most disappointed in the ways in which we've let philanthropy and even research function as like anthropological tourists. And so, in such a way, you know, if the shoe fits, I'm just playing, but in such a way that doesn't invite accountability. And that goes back to that, like, you're a tourist in a way, so um, there's not close enough space to you and the issue, you and the person that you're resourcing, the organization, the community that you're resourcing. So that you're not accountable to anything. You have enough space to where you're just like, reasonable distance, the
Yeah.
thing. So when the attacks are like so clear, or the way that people are organizing is so particularly cultural, you get to say, you know, but when there's real relationship, you feel you see yourself represented. And I talk about this a lot. Borealis, Nichelle at Borealis, is in relationship with our work in such a way that she sees herself represented. She's willing to be moved by the needs that Yellowhammer Fund has. in a way that ensures that she's accountable when we are in crisis in any way monetarily. So I just think, one, like as Dr. Shonda Chapman says, philanthropy is deeply engaging as a structure of governance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's frustrating because the outcomes that they want to see don't align with their funding practices. You say you want this like really well resourced, nourished, blah 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 community, etc. You do not fund anything that says you want community to be well flourish or none of the things. And when you really sit with the fact that philanthropy is a form of governance, because your priorities are showing up in grant apps, they're shaping what organizations are able to do. I remember I went to Mitchellville, Beaufort, South Carolina, to like one of the first places where formerly enslaved folks were like building out their lives. And like some of the language was like calling traffickers or slave owners planters. They were calling them planters. And I was like, planters? What? I was like, are y'all calling slave owners planters, like traffickers planters? And they're like, yeah, the grant that we got requires us to use particular language. And I just thought about how I think about it often of how philanthropy is a governing body, but I don't really think about it always in terms of like the narrative of it all. Like y'all are shaping narrative as philanthropy, and they're just so quick to say, well, like, oh, administratively, they're doing these things in the government, but also y'all are like lockstep.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all are doing the same thing. What the outcomes that you want to see, you're not funding, you're not resourcing, and that's another way in which philanthropy is not permissive. It's really obligatory. So, like having conversations about, like, oh, we want to be in real relationship and partnership with with the work that we fund. No, you don't. How? If there's obligation there, it's not going to be mutualistic. If there's obligation there, there's going to be no way for someone like myself, when I know there's obligations and someone that's funding us, to really say, hey, this is a bad practice that you're engaging in right now. Like, this is a harmful thing. And yeah, I might still say it. I have some, in my head, I have some privileges. So I'm going to say it anyway. I don't have to figure it out on the back end. Then if I don't say it, then Tia hears about it. Then Tia's going to say it. And then now I'm going to be over here with Tia and not you. And we'll figure it out on the back end. But, I think philanthropy does get it. I think there's some instances in which philanthropic bodies are hiring incredible Black feminist organizers and what have you and tying their hands. That feels frustrating for me. But I also, at this stage, like, who do we have to organize against? Like, if you're saying, oh, my hands are just getting tied, by who?
Mm-hmm.
By who? And when we talk about risk, it's just like, well, risk doesn't go away if, like you decide that your body of work is not going to assume it. Risk doesn't go away because philanthropy says I'm going to be risk adverse. It just shifts to the leaders of movements. It's going to say that we're not going to be risk adverse. We have too much skin in the game. I'm organizing for people I can name. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's some people waiting for me when I get off of a call, when I come back from a conference, that are expecting me to engage in a certain way. And I think a lot of philanthropy's issue is not accountable to shit. Like, it's just, well, I made it here to do this thing. Why are you here? What are you in the work for? What did you claim your values were when you came? It's been frustrating to see philanthropy hide behind the veil of like priority shifts.
Mm-hmm.
Cowardice? And like, who has to pay for it? Like, I think I'm that level of tired. I think broadly, I don't know if we're all mad enough. Like, what did you decide to do? What did you, every time I have to make a hard decision at work, I'm like, well, what values did I claim to hold? Who did I
Yeah.
say I was organizing for? Who am I accountable to? Decision made. Palestine.
Yeah.
I was like, we about to take a hit for this. And I was just like, do it.
Yeah.
And then when the hits came, double down.
Yeah.
Tia came, triple down. You didn't even ask. You said, hey, we're about to double down on the thing. So it's just been, there's a way in which I understand people's like, I acquired this thing. I want to keep it safe. I want to be in the space of safety. There's no safety. There's none. You're next. There's none. Being at Harvard, I recognized there's a lot of president and CEOs. I don't know why I made it into that class of people. But what I noticed was that, take the Palestine issue for instance, that we were talking about another genocide of the Rohingya people. And one of the folks said, well, I'm not talking about Palestine because I'm working on the Jordan River and I'm like literally saving Palestinian lives. It does not make sense. I have to lay low and do my thing. So, oh, I get that. The
Mm-hmm.
next woman says, oh, well, yeah, I just want to lay low and do my work too. What work? The next woman says, yeah, because when we included trans women into our work for women, people were really mean to us. And I was like, wow, how that just trickled down that quickly. Like, you
Mm,
said you couldn't advocate for Palestinian people because you're serving them. I'm not mad at it. Like, quite literally on the Jordan River herd. Now you're just like, well, I have medical supplies that I ship to third world countries sometimes, so I can't either. And now this woman has decided that this is the same thing as her saying that trans women don't deserve advocacy. And it was interesting because me being me, I was like, y'all don't stand for anything. And I'm black and I'm queer and I'm organizing around abortion locally. I'm next. Like, I know what's next after black trans women, queer folks. And at
mhm.
what point, like, our willingness to sit around and wait for us to become the target is insane. Like, I know there's going to be a point at which you strategically eliminate me from your advocacy. If you
Yeah.
can strategically say this for strategy purposes, I'm not going to care about Palestinian people. Oh, for strategy, I'm not going to care about trans women. I'm next. It's not going to be long before you say, "Oh, Janice is next," and I won't wait. So yeah, I just think some of it is like one of the things I have an issue with in movement and with people with power is granting people ignorance of
Mm,
like if they knew better, if they know. Like the the road to hell is paved with good intentions and granting people ignorance. Organize against those folks at your job, or we're going to organize against them and you.
yeah. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I also think it speaks to how philanthropy is quite literally constructed by the systems that it claims to want to dismantle. You don't amass that level of wealth, your endowments don't become that big without being deeply embedded in a capitalist system that is based on a racial hierarchy. I think that it is the laundering of social capital that often happens with philanthropists that are like, no, but look, I give, or we give more than what we're legally required, and the legal requirement is what, like 4%, five, okay,
And they're
five.
like, we do 6%
We do
here.
6%. Clap, everyone clap. It's like when a toddler jumps up and they look at you and they're like, and you're like, yay for the toddler, and they're like, no, clap for me, without acknowledging like all the ways in which they are quite literally financially propped up by the systems that are harming folks in real time. And I also think, as in a movement space, we're very siloed, not just from philanthropy, but sometimes by like the healthcare sector in and of itself. Like,
Yeah.
okay, we will fund this, but then we don't talk to the doctors who actually do the work, who don't talk to the funders who distribute the money, who don't talk to the politicians. Like, there's so many times where I've like not seen, I'll use the Democrats for an example because they're supposedly on our side, quote unquote. That's what they be telling me. So I will be like, oh, I would expect y'all are going to show up to the community events because we're both on the same team, right? We're
Right?
right? Looks at the camera, right? Right. And so, or things like, hey, we're doing all these things, but no one knows a doctor who can be trusted in their community, right? Like, that's not happening. Or funders they come down, they do like a site evaluation. They're like, yes, y'all are doing the things that we said you were going to do. And then they go back without really any real understanding of the work. And I think it's by nature, right? It is that distant because if you have to become too involved, that tends to force your hand a little bit. Like, damn, I do know, I don't know. I know James. James, cool. I can't sit around and be like, damn, James can't eat today because our priority is only supposed to be the environment. So we're not going to care about this other thing, right? And I think that speaks to why sometimes in movement work we want to stay to one issue base. So can you talk a little bit about like how expansive um pleasure is in tying certain issues together? So reproductive justice, not just as abortion, not just as like family police or being against like the family policing system, but like really about like pleasure being the through line to all of these different aspects of the movement.
Ooh, I'm about to turn this question back on you.
Oh, why would you do that? Why would you
The pleasure guru is here. Let's do the thing.
do that? Okay, wow, look at me, I wasn't prepared to answer any questions today. um I think when I came to this work, so I came in, for anyone who doesn't know, I came into this work as a sex educator, like deeply, okay, I was a sex educator for an Instagram account called Slippery When Wet. And I just came into this space as someone who was like deeply curious about sex and sexuality, especially from the perspective of like blackness and our intersections with like the ways in which we have been socialized around sex, the way we talk about it in our communities. And for me, the most interesting part was like how taboo it was, and yet how present it was in every aspect of society. And when I started doing pleasure work, it to me, I think about a number of stories. Like my grandmother was born in 1950 in a small town in South Carolina and had four children. Didn't want to have four kids, but like at the time, her husband was like, "Let's keep having kids," and she was like, "No, my body. Like I want my body back." And he was like, "All you care about is your body," and she was like, "Hell yeah." Uh, and the fourth pregnancy was a bit dangerous for her, but her and the child survived. She got pregnant a fifth time. She almost passed, and the child did not survive. Fortunately for her, the doctor finally was like, "Yeah, she's got to get her tubes tied. Like this won't be safe for have another pregnancy." At the time, you needed your husband's permission to go and do that thing. So he was like, "Oh shit!" And now it's finally clicking to me that this is real and there are health concerns, so she can have her tubes tied. She got her tubes tied, and she told me prior to this, and she shared this story with me when I was getting my tubes tied, and this was like a bonding experience. Which shout out to growing in an intergenerational home. But she was saying how prior to getting her tubes tied, she was like disinterested in sex altogether. Like not having that autonomy meant that she knew that she could become pregnant and just did not want to do that. After her getting her tubes tied, she would say she went up to my grandfather, which was so uncomfortable for me. But she said she went up to my grandfather and told him like, "I just turned this baby carriage to a playpen." And whenever I tell this story, she always makes sure I say, "And so let's play." I be trying to leave that out, but she'd be like, "And I said after that." And
Yeah.
so like to me, that was very intrinsic on how like having the autonomy to make decisions for your body allowed people to re-tap into their access to pleasure, right? Like when I think about being in school and having all of these courses that were taught about like rape as a weapon of war and what that means, what that looks
Mm.
like when you're talking about imperialism and the militarization of country and the destabilization of countries because of like corporate greed, right? Like you're also impacting folks' pleasure. When you think about the environment and pregnant people, and you talk about communities who don't have green spaces, who don't have trees, which then impacts their ability to have safe and healthy pregnancies because heat is a huge determinant on like the health outcomes of someone's pregnancy. I think about how all of that is a through line, right? If I don't think I want to have a kid because my community doesn't have access to water or doesn't have access to clean water, or we have a problem with being over policed and over surveilled, or any of these things, then that reflects how I envision sex, right? And what I want to do about that, and how I envision my body and what I'm capable of experiencing. So I think for me, pleasure is central because it is central to our ways of expressing ourselves as human beings, and therefore the decisions that we're capable of making with the options that are available to us. LOL, I just saw Amy. Thanks, Amy.
Amy's such a real one.
Andy is. Love them
Uh,
down.
I'm so pleased with my decision to turn that question on you. I must say that I'm very pleased with my decision making in this moment. House pleasure through line. So I'm stuck in relationship, and I'm thinking about how we've partnered to do a lot of what we've wanted to do in terms of our principles, whether it was the pregnancy not being a catalyst to incarceration and partnering with Richard Rice and pregnancy justice, my gosh. Whether it was like not being a catalyst to death and partnering with Oasis Women's Health, Chocolate McMarmy's Margins, and Alabama Birth Center. But also, I just think about Oasis around the time of like last year before last. She was like, "I'm so tired of only hearing about maternal mortality of Black women." And she was like, "I need people to know that Black women are having like joyful births, like autonomous, happy, very well supported birthing experiences." So I've been thinking about just like I don't know, like how binding and like inviting joy is into movement. And, like, speaking to the joyful pieces and necessity less than always, like, the direness, the bad thing that's happening that people already that maybe they don't have as much language for, but they know, like, they
Yeah.
already know they're not doing too great. Shit. Like, maybe we need to have a conversation about something joyful in the now. So, yeah, I just think joy is kinda like a super inviting,
Hmm.
Pleasure is invitational. I think about when I think about pleasure, when I was sleeping on somebody's floor, I was like, I'm not having sex. Like I ain't gonna do it. Like the way that capitalism tell you do not need to be experiencing pleasure. Like
Yeah.
now, why would I be happy in this moment if I don't have no money?
Yeah.
Or even when they even start to look like conversations, amongst each other about experiencing joy and pleasure. There's
Mhm.
so much policing on joy and pleasure. Like, I'll be damn, like, oh, you are happy? How dare you be happy and you just said that you didn't have what you needed?
Yeah.
How dare you be happy and you needed to reach out for diapers? How dare you
Mhm.
experience joy and like you had to have an abortion?
Yeah.
So I just think about just like how we've embedded it in every little thing, whether it's like coalition building with partners, because being in a relationship for me, again, is deeply joyful. Whether it's Kelsey having snacks in the cars for folks that are traveling out of state and being like, hey, try to enjoy it while you're in Chicago. Chicago is a new place. I love Chicago. That's a new place. Like,
Yeah.
here's a couple bucks. Here's some snacks.
Mhm.
Like, this is a serious decision, but if you're happy about it, be happy about it. Like when I got an abortion, I was like, oh, thank you, God. I literally came out of the clinic. I was like, oh, yeah, I feel so much better. Like, I was like, yes. Like, there was, at, judge, if you will, there was no moment of sad. I was so relieved. I was like,
Yeah.
thank God I have to do that.
Yeah.
Like, reclaiming myself with them. I literally cannot explain how happy I literally walked out. You would have thought I like was freshly divorced. So I was like, ah, like when I came out the door, I bet them people was like, I hope she don't come back. But I just think capitalism ruins everything and it impacts the way that people see people experiencing joy and think like, oh, well, their priorities, blah 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 blah. Just like
Yeah.
how people police giving people unhoused folks money. They're like,
Yeah.
well, that's not what he's going to use it on. He's not going to go buy a house with $7. He's like, I
Yeah.
don't give a fuck. Like, if he
Yeah.
goes and buys a honey bun or a cigarette, I'm not going to. I don't care. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, he has an MD 2020 now. Not my business.
Yeah, it's also really telling to me because, like, I've had people say, like, I'll give money to someone experiencing homelessness, and they'll be like, "Oh, he's gonna use that to buy alcohol." We're literally on the way to the liquor store. So, like, what part of this is different? The fact that I have a family to fall back on. Let's say I really did fall in dire straits. I have a lot of people whose couches I could sleep on before I had to sleep on the street. Right? That does not change the fact that, like, we're both spending our money on the same thing. It doesn't make me a better person or a better human being because I drink knowing that I have a job, or if something happened, I could go to my friend's house, right? Like, also, damn, life is hard enough. If I have no, we don't have trees. It's not like they have covering. We have police constantly like pushing them out of their homes, destroying their documentation of paperwork. Let him have a Modelo. Like, it doesn't bother me. I just feel like sometimes, like, if that's gonna be the thing that gets you through to the next day, then get you through to the next day. Also, we don't even have a real grasp of what, like, some of the things that people are dealing with can cause, right? Like alcohol withdrawal, if that's something they're going through, can kill someone. So, like, that is not my, it ain't my ministry to be like, well, I would rather take the moral high ground than make sure that you were straight as a human being. You know what I'm saying? And I think that that speaks to how we can push sometimes folks out who could have been on our side because we make the, like, our work miserable. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I went and I had an abortion and it was joyous for me and I was allowed to experience all the things that all the emotions that I felt. We went and visited the Hope Clinic in Chicago when we were doing our Road to Care, and the services they offered, they do later abortions, and the services they offer to really make sure that there's an emotional wraparound service for folks who, like, maybe do have conflicted feelings. Maybe they are extremely happy. I know when I had my abortions, I immediately hit my homegirls up and I was like, we outside tonight. I'm gonna be outside like outside has never seen me. Do you hear me? I'm having a ball. But then there might be people who feel like that, and there might be people who don't feel like that, and they were really ready to sit with people in whatever realm they were in, and then provide services to give them that level of dignity and respect. And I think that when you do that, people leave in a better spot, in a more safe spot, and where their, like, emotions can't be manipulated by our opposition, right? Like, if people treat you like garbage when you go in, they misgender you, they look at you with judgment and shame. Oh, this is your fourth, fifth, sixth time here, and I'm showing all of that on my face. it's very easy for our ops to then be like, look how they treat you. They really don't care about you. All of these things. And I think when we're talking about strategically building movements, we have to think about the ways in which we treat people and how we let people leave our spaces, and how that is also a part of like our strategic, like our strategies, and sustaining people to like understanding why this is okay. There are so many calls I've been on where people are like, yeah, I know I had a homegirl 50 years ago who had an abortion and she didn't want to do that, and her emotions, she's been messed up about it ever since. I'm like, wow, what would it have looked like if somebody held her during that time, right? If there was a soft place for her to land during that time, if she wasn't forced to make certain decisions, or if she was able to really flush out how she felt. I'm not saying it's acceptable for us to then turn around and force people in the opposite direction, but what would it look like if we allowed people to feel in their like wholeness in our movements? And I think that to me is still pleasure, right? That's still embodying that in the work. Um, so my next question is, what do you think it communicates to our communities when we invest organizational dollars into the celebration of who they are?
Ooh, these are great questions. When I was at Nova, I forgot who said it. They were like, budget as a moral document. I'm a person that's like, if you have a value, it needs to be a budget line. But I really liked how they framed it as a budget as a moral document, because it's not enough to say you believe in a thing if there's no way in which your work reflects it and your budget reflects it, or if it's an afterthought. We have things in our budget that are for Hot Girl Summer, but also we have things on our budget that are strictly LGBTQ fun. Like for when folks reach out, they're like, "Oh, I want to host an event. I want to make this third space for us. We need places to be, organized, have fun, whatever." We're like, "Absolutely, yes." What I think it says to community, I think there's something, to me, there's necessity in engaging people that are deeply resourced to the fullest extent of our ability. So whether that's like their basic needs, whether we've like provided opportunities for joy and all of the things, I want to engage people that are as deeply resourced as possible to remove any potential obligation. I don't want people engaged in Yellowhammer Fun because they don't have a choice. Like I don't want them to be like, oh well, this is all we got. I want people to be from like their most resourced. They have the right the right information, the right resource, all the things, and from that deeply resourced place, say, yeah, I actually do want to engage this movement in this way. I think it's not the same if people just engage it because you're the only option,
Yeah,
or you're the closest by, or because they don't have transportation, or because they don't know what you're really doing. um, but I also think it affirms people's like individual like ability and like what they might dream or see for themselves if we are like not lecturing them and we're in dialogue, and if we're in a space where we're clearly trying to learn from individuals. I think people always address everyday community members as if they are like issues to be fixed or problems to be solved, or like instead of being coming from a place of like we're in a rigged system.
yeah,
How are you engaging it already? Because you're still here. So, like, for starters, you're still here. Like, people
yeah,
are still here. There are generations to show us, like, people know how to survive. What are you doing to survive? What does it mean for us to show up and support? So I just think it's just kind of like it's like restoring dignity. I think what I've noticed from being in relationship in the way that we have been with people like Miss Shalisa Jackson, that was like, I haven't felt valuable in my entire life until now at the fellowship. And she's like in her 50s. I mean, you've went your the entirety of your life feeling invaluable or without value, and you're like 55, and all it took was to be witnessed. I think being invisible is deeply unnatural. Like there's nothing natural about being invisible. And I think about the attacks we get organizationally aren't just because of abortion access, it's because we've chose to witness people that the state wanted to ignore. We've
mhm,
chose to heighten their concerns. I think about the case against the attorney general that we won, and I was thinking about how their legal was asked a question by the judge of like, if a husband takes his wife out of state, do you care? They're like, nope. And then he was like, why? And they're like, it's the financial piece. He was like, well, if the husband pays for the wife to get abortion care out of state, do you care? And they're like, no. He was like, "Why?" He was like, "It's because Yellowhammer Fund stands out as assisting people that wouldn't have regularly been able to get
Mhm.
to care." And I just think that speaks again to the intentionality of the things when we talk about what threats are and how violent they are, how violent the state is. Our response to that violence has to be serious, right?
Mhm.
Like, it can't just be we tell them a cute story. I'm interested in narrative change inside of community because some of the policy campaigns that have happened have impacted how we see ourselves, whether that's like the whole welfare queen, blah, 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 all those things that were like very successful narrative campaigns and policies. I'm interested in doing that shift of narrative on the ground so that people have language, so that they have less stigma, so that they're more mad at a system than each other. But
Mhm.
in terms of like the government trying to convince them, people know they lying. So
Yeah.
it's just like, yeah, build relationship in a way that witnesses people because invisibility is
Mhm.
unnatural as hell, but it also like reduces what you do, who you do it with, what it might look like, what confidence you have in what you're doing. Miss Jackson's been volunteering with us ever since she
Mhm.
just felt seen. We make assumptions about who's invisibilized. I remember listening to Dr. Shanoya Bryant say, I felt invisible for the last year. Dr. Shanoya, I was like, but I'm a fan. Like, you felt invisible. Like, this person has done so many beautiful things, so many accomplishments, has been invisibilized by her surroundings. And again, just that witnessing and building relationship is such a constant muscle to flex
Mhm.
all the time. Because even as I say this, there's the acknowledgement that even I am functioning in that way of like needing to move through the things. We got things to do. But like,
Yeah.
what does it mean to slow down and have genuine conversations with people? Let them share themselves with you in a way that really invites you to like shift your work, but also shift yourself as an individual for how you show up in the work. I
Mhm.
think the way that we've engaged people just has been invitational
Yeah.
and an invitation to be witnessed in a way that the state doesn't do.
Yeah. I liked something that you touched on about like shifting the narrative. There is this prevailing narrative that the Deep South is only a site of oppression, right? And baby, and I want to know, what does it mean to do work in the Deep South, pleasure centered work in the Deep South, and then how does that shift the narrative about what the Deep South? Hold on, I'm gonna rephrase this because I don't like how I'm phrasing this. I don't like how I wrote this. How does the follow up question being, how does that cement the Deep South as a place beyond oppression that has historically been a place deeply intertwined with like its own pleasure politic?
How does our work cement the South as a place?
So we are geographically based in the Deep South, but
Yes.
our work is more than just the fact that we happen to be in the Deep South, but
Okay.
we organize with a deep Southern politic. Can you
Yes.
explain to me what that deep Southern politic does in regards to like subverting the narrative that the Deep South is just a place of oppression?
Ooh, okay. So I will say that I don't particularly organize in a sense to like respond to people's goofy
Mhm.
ideas of what the South is, only because I don't have time.
Mhm.
And because this is another instance in where people fucking know, and I say that because there's an abundance of information, right? Like the people making those assertions also know about the civil rights work in the
Mhm.
South in Montgomery. Like, what are we even doing? Yeah, these are the same people visiting the EJI and then
Mhm.
going back and being like, oh, well, we're going to support you if we could send someone to teach you how to do the thing. A larger women's rights movement around rallies told me they're going to send someone to Alabama to teach us how to organize. And so, like, I sit with it often because I'm like, how much education do I feel like doing? And how much of this is just like intentional? And some of it is like deeply, this is a race issue. And again, I think that movement space has the same issue as any other institution, unfortunately. Like, you think you want to come in social justice and be like, oh, well, these people are progressive and they have better ideals and blah, blah, blah. They're the same ideals of like what's possible, who could lead said work, what Black women are capable of in leadership as any other institution. Um, so some of my work is just really engaged in the work so much and so consistently that we can't be ignored. Less than as like, oh, we can do a thing. There's so much possibility in Alabama, and I'm always excited to be like, oh, we have these wins. We have more wins coming. This is what's possible. But it's always for the purpose of like making sure that folks around me see possibility and like see themselves represented, see themselves as a person that can affect change. Like we don't all just need a leader to do a thing. Like I think we showcase possibility for community less so than like this broader group of people, and like to the extent that we have to convince someone because a check needs to be got, we do that really unapologetically. Like, this is what we're doing, this is what oppressed folks need in this moment, this is what Janice that slept on someone's floor that needed an abortion, that needed care, would have needed in this moment. And no, I do not want to hear you tell me that it could look differently, or it needs to, that's not quite it, or like, well, I don't deserve this thing. There are people that have offered support that we've turned down just because, no, actually, we don't want to cause harm in our community for $6,000 or any amount.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think the possibilities in the South are also based in us being the blueprint for a lot of shitty legislation. Like there's like the historical ancestral pieces of this work. I think my work of myself is deeply ancestral. Like I be thinking like I gotta get out of here, and I just feel like my ancestors be like, no, like no, you're not. Like even if I wasn't like inside of a context for work, my
Yeah.
work outside of work is still deeply um responsible to something. I think often about my conversation with Dr. Janice Wesley, who's a chemist here that's 79 that integrated Birmingham. She was like, baby, what do you owe me?
Mhm.
And I was like, hey, Miss Wesley, my life, it feels like, but just that sense of responsibility too has been more of a driver than like trying to convince a person of a thing. So, yeah, we're the blueprint for a lot of bullshit, but we're also the blueprint to navigate. After Dobbs, it was funny because people were like, oh no, Alabama, like we can't resource them. They don't, whatever. But then it started, they had their safe states, right? But
Mhm.
then they're like, oh, how's y'all Hammer Fund organizing around this? And it's like, what's gonna move without Alabama? What's gonna move without the South?
Mhm.
And what's gonna move without Alabama? Like, if you're running a marathon and it's like a handoff baton, and you focusing all on your fastest running the kid across, and you didn't left somebody behind, but they're the person to pull up the route, you're not gonna get anywhere. If
Mhm.
you think we're the weakest link, which is absolute horseshit, then what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah. Also, the abandonment of the South and the Deep South in particular is why we're in the place that we're in today, right? Like, had we built an infrastructure that included the Deep South off rip, we would not be seeing the dismantling of Roe. Would not be seeing the dismantling of our reproductive rights, at large. And it's because we decided that some people were disposable, right? That some regions did not deserve access to resources and care. And I think when you talk about building a movement for the future, you can't just do it for like the easiest places to build movement because like you said earlier, it was always going to come for everyone, right? What we
Yep.
allow to happen in one place will happen everywhere else. We've seen that time and time again. We didn't care when AIDS was just a gay disease, right? Then it started getting up, we were like, oh my gosh, there's something we need to do about this. We didn't care when drugs were a problem just in the hoods, and then they started getting out everywhere, like, oh my gosh, we have to do something about this. Yes, nothing stays contained because humans are deeply social creatures, right? We have a lot of movement practices. We are intertwined in ways that sometimes we don't often think about, and no one wants to think about the consequences of like letting harm fester in one place because you think that you're safe, even with the understanding that historically that has never been accurate.
And some of it is I think broadly the country doesn't want folks to be autonomous or self-determined, but some of it is based in like this notion that Alabama can't move policy, which for starters is again bullshit, right? Because if you find the South to move policy, the South will move policy. And if your thought is that, oh, well, there's such horrible legislation in Alabama, why then would you divest from a community of people that are living under said legislation? And what does it say that your investment in the state is only if one can move policy? Like, is it that we can't move policy and now everybody deserves to live under abortion bans, under midwifery regulations, under the closures of our OB units? Like, what does it mean for you to assert that you don't care after policy. I just it's deeply racist. And it's interesting that people think that you can build relationship in that way, and it just speaks to a lack of relationship from people that are resourcing movement because
Mhm.
there's nothing in my head that would say like, oh, this community can't get to this finish line point. They don't deserve to be advocated for.
Yeah.
And I did something else you said. I was just thinking about. I think some of it is just like a fundamental misunderstanding of like how people organize and what it could look like because Alabama gets funded to like oftentimes like oh get people to the polls or like you want people to care about you're like oh well this legislation is like deeply criminalizing of the thing but like if you wanted people to be at the polls you probably should have been in neighborhoods like helping people get their warrants revoked like
Mhm.
removed you probably should have been helping people getting their shitty charges thrown out that's how you build community but you want to skip all of the necessary pieces to build movement and power and just skip over there and have someone do the thing you want them to do now, I don't want to come to the polls if you don't care that I haven't had my license in 3 years simply because I can't afford to. Don't
Yeah.
want to if you don't care that my cousin is still in jail only because of expense.
Mhm.
Like, so I just think the whole, like, I don't think I'm disappointed in the way in which philanthropy, but also just powers that be, like, disregard or dismiss folks want to live under self governance
Mhm.
and like what that could look like because I think yes we need to shift and reform systems that we're in and then now we don't have a choice and like ultimately we have to be building something different like none of this shit works so like there's a bunch of fucking fake rules y'all won't change the rules even though
Mhm.
y'all made them up make something different up like
Yeah.
the kind of be creative I thought everybody was so creative
Everyone's so
oh my
creative.
goodness because we have to be building like block we
Yeah.
have to be building we have to be creating something different and I would love if like nationally there was a bigger shift and like the systems looked a different way and I think we can get there but also in the now what does
Mhm.
it mean to like affirm that we might need to like sit with self-governance like we have to build something that is like the thing that we want to have and I say that because when you're resourcing individuals and community it's not going to matter that there's this piece of legislation that exists that tells you oh, midwifery is bad. Like Miss Jackson's not gonna let you bleed out on the sidewalk, and she knows how to assist you.
Yeah.
But you might not be able to go to the doctor in that moment. They
Mhm.
might say, "Oh, you've tried to navigate an abortion, and you might just be miscarrying." So,
Yeah.
like, community members are going to care for you and not abandon you in the way that systems are. So, what does it mean to resource the community members? If we're saying community is the ultimate resource, then we also have to say they have to be deeply resourced to do their work, and that
Mhm.
has to include joy, it has to include pleasure. Their lights have to be on, the rent
Mhm.
has to be paid, their stomachs have to be full.
Yeah. I agree. Thank you so much. We are at a little over the hour. I am going to ask you one final question before we close. And the question is two-part. You can answer either way. But what are some innovations coming out of the Deep South that you think movement spaces need to be paying more attention to? And or how has Alabama or organizing in Alabama shaped the way you think about liberation?
Ooh, what are some projects coming out of the deep south that I think people need to be paying attention to? Okay, I say I'm gonna start with slippery when wet. I think people should be following. No, and this is not flattery because I'm not that nice. I think I am kind. I think definitely slippery because I just think people need more examples of for us by us unapologetically name the thing and also there's people make assumptions about like what political thoughts or politics that black people hold assuming that there's like no radical space of
Yeah.
thought that centers pleasure and joy so I just think that piece of like really holding a line in such a beautiful joyful way that slippery does I appreciate what else is coming out of Alabama? Definitely Alabama Birth Equity Initiative. We did a 48 county bus tour. Shout out to Kelsey to see what people's issues were that they wanted to address, and that were keeping them from getting to reproductive health care. Half of the folks said transportation, half said cost, but a lot of the people said they're visibly poor, which was in, which
Mhm.
was frustrating. I think about Dorothy Roberts Shattered Bonds and like those. The mandatory reporting of it all. I
Yeah.
think Alabama doesn't get enough credit for how highly surveilling the state is in
Yeah.
general. But coming back and building out that coalition with Alabama Birth Center, Oasis, Chocolate with Mommies and Margins to say, like, the need is so vast and all of these wheels have to be turning at the same time. Can we
Mhm.
collaborate? But also being very honest about what my expertise is and what it's not. So, like, I'm not a maternal health expert. Dr. Sands, what you got? I'm not a lactation expert. Rosalind was up.
Yeah.
So I just think it's been like a very beautiful example and model of like building what we need to see, being in a relationship in a way that's deeply in service to community. I think oftentimes you see coalitions and it's like for the sake of leveraging a resource, but this
Mhm.
was genuinely us being like, we're not going to get the deliverable to the finish line unless we all move our things at the same time and be very clear on like what we're doing, why we're doing it, what that's going to look like, how we're going to be in relationship with each other, and then also not it's been nice also not being the sole decision maker of a thing.
Mhm.
So like I just the girl, just one person. It's
Yeah.
for other people. We just gotta do this little voting vote. I don't know. So I just think that's just like a real model of like coalition for community and
Mhm.
community with community and not just to leverage a resource or
Yeah.
to just name a thing. And what was your second question to you?
And what is one way that Alabama has shaped your thoughts about liberation? Or organizing in Alabama has shaped the way you view liberation?
Ooh, so I think again to speak to some of the folks, I only did one bus tour stop, but I've been rural Alabama a lot. I think it's been interesting to see how wrong our assumptions are about rural Alabama. It's like, oh well, everyone's so conservative, no one wants to hear you, blah blah blah. You can't build a relationship there. But realizing that people were just kind of relieved to even feel seen or heard. I think what I appreciate most is just there's some like problematic ways in which like the South is the Southern hospitality is stemming from some bullshit sometimes. But I
Mm.
also just deeply appreciate like some of our like rules. I just fool with like you walk into somebody's house and you gotta say hey to everybody, you gotta acknowledge Miss Sally on the porch. Like I appreciate how relational, how deeply cultural we are, how the food's freaking great.
Mhm.
And being in Alabama, there's always someone creating the thing they want to see. There's always a space being blooming. There's always dreaming happening, and there's always an abundance of people dedicated to liberation for
Yeah.
you to like get with, get behind, get beside. Yeah, I don't know. Alabama's just that girl. I don't care what anyone says. I go places, they're like, "Do you just hate it?" No, I don't. That's crazy. Why would I hate Alabama?
Yeah.
And I won't be leaving Alabama unless it burns down. So, yeah, I just think we're like a deeply relational cultural state, and I just appreciate like all the ways that we show up. There's like some not monolithic, but also like some things you just like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that makes so much sense. I've had such a good time talking to you for a little over an hour. Sorry, y'all, we ran a little behind. But I appreciate all the things you said. I think there are so many gems that you were able to share with us. I think there are so many conversations that I don't get to see happen as often, especially from the perspective of folks living and organizing in the deep South. I hope everyone stays connected with us. I would not be doing my job as a comms director if I didn't say follow Yellowhammer on all platforms. You can follow us at Yellowhammer Fund on Facebook and LinkedIn, and at Yellow Fund on everywhere else, Blue Sky Threads, Instagram, all the things. And so just continue to stay connected with our work. Tell your people to tell their people to become a monthly donor if you got it like that. And if you don't, just signal, boost, and share. We appreciate all the love that we get in whatever ways people have available to give it. So thank you, Janice, for joining me.
Thanks,
And
Tia.
thank you for everyone for tuning in. Oh, someone said I have to jump, but thank you so much for the conversation today. Something I'll be taking with me is being invisible is deeply unnatural. Yeah, you ate with that. You had some gems in here. I said, oh, a banger. I kept trying to like slightly like get my pen out and be like, write that down, write that down. Minute 20, put that minute.
Cut it out. I just be trying to keep up with you, Tia. I just be trying to keep up.
It's
Thanks,
always a good
Tia.
key. But you have a great
Always.
day and y'all have a good one.
Oh, Nadia's in the comment. I love
Oh,
Nadia. Okay.
I did too. Y'all have the best tuning in
I
to West
love
Virginia.
Brenna too.
Okay. Hold on. We got some people in the chat. Thank y'all for helping me keep my job by showing up in the comments.
You're so ridiculous. That'll do it.
All
Goodbye.
right. Bye, y'all. my gosh.